Alright, I'm so excited to try this new style of video. I'm not probably going to do it all the time, but I really wanted you to be able to see the key points and be able to screenshot it if you wanted to, and really use this as a reference guide. I have a complete blog post with like way more detail than I'm going to be able to go to in this video because, that would take a long time. And so that is linked below if you want to read that as well. If you don't know my backstory, I've raised the French lap rabbit since I was 17, but I got my first herd of rabbits, and that's in the show world what we call like our group of rabbits, even if they don't live together. And I was 10 years old when I got them, and obviously 20 years ago, or 20 plus, by the time, whatever time you're watching this, vets didn't know much about rabbits, and a lot of them wouldn't even take them. And even though nowadays vets are taking rabbits, they still don't know a whole lot. And I'm seeing a lot of people come back to me saying certain things that a vet told them this or that about a rabbit that they got from me. But I'm still like, they were just guessing. Like one of them was saying that the rabbit had mites or something like that. And I'm looking at what they're showing me. And what people don't understand is there are certain things with rabbits, like when they're shedding or in a molt, they get flaky skin. And I'm sorry, over a video conference, your vet is not telling whether those are mites or not. I'm sorry, they're just not. And so being someone who has raised rabbits for over 20 years, I really want to start sharing the things that I've used that's, helped me save a ton of money. And also, just help you learn to fix things on your own. You are not helpless. And so early on, I started learning about herbs. Like I am the furthest thing from a woo-woo person or a flower child person or anything like that. But I am also of the mindset that I will recognize what works when that's the case. And I also am of the opinion that, God gave us these herbs to help us. And so I really think that if you're intentional about doing it and learning what an herb can do, you should be able to fix 9 times out of 10 the issues that your rabbits are having. All right, and the other approach that I like to take is, some people get into essential oils and they'll have like 100 of them or something. You don't need that many. You need maybe like 3 to 5 on hand, and that is about it. So lavender, obviously everybody knows it, but it is literally the jack of all trades of herbs, and I use it. It's usually my go-to one. If there's maybe a digestion issue, I'll try something else, but really this one can do a lot. Okay, so you can use lavender, and I'm going to describe it with rabbits, but 9 times out of 10 works the same for most animals. Okay, just a quick note, obviously I'm not a veterinarian, but everything that I have done, I've used on my own rabbits or my own animals or dogs or whatever. And it's all just from my 20 plus years of research and real life using it. I'm not making this crap up, okay? Which I see so many people, they learned it in a book, and that's what they're going off of. They're not going off of real life, what they've done, okay? And so while I believe a lot of vets are good intended, when someone hasn't really done it for a lot of years, they're just guessing. I'm sorry, they're just guessing. All right, so if you don't like this approach, well, you don't have to watch. So let's go a quick rundown of some of the main uses of lavender. So it's an antidepressant, an antibacterial, an astringent, an antispasmodic. I don't know, these are some big words. An anti-inflammatory, and a tonic. Okay? So, we kind of know about it being an antidepressant, but also a calming thing. And I'm going to talk about the different ways that you can use it. But I believe that if animals know what can sense what's wrong with them and they know what will help them, they will also be more willing to take it. I read about this like a long time ago, where horses would, sniff the herb or whatever, and they would be willing to take it, but some herbs they wouldn't, that kind of thing. And so if one herb doesn't work, try a different one. So like I said, the antidepressant, we are kind of aware of it being calming, so that would work a lot with training or if an animal is going to a new home, and I'll get into that deeper later. And antibacterial Now, this one, that obviously a cleaner, like trying to make things clean. So internally, you would use it more as, like, I'm trying to think. I'll get into this in a little bit, but like if your rabbit's not looking like it's not feeling well, if there's, I'll share my experience with diarrhea, where I used that one, an antispasmodic. It's kind of, this one would be where more of an aerial thing, and the sniffing part or the essential oil part really isn't going to work with rabbits. It's either topical or feed it to them ahead of time. Okay. And then an anti-inflammatory, this is great for if they have an injury that you need to work on, and you want them to allow you to work on it as long as possible. And so that will help make the, injury less painful. And it does obviously help it heal faster as well. So a tonic is kind of just like an all around, make them feel better kind of thing. All right. So basically disinfecting wounds, bites, meaning like from bugs or things like that, skin rashes or irritations, small cuts. And I already said a little bit about the anti-inflammatory thing. All right. So right before travel is a lot of times when I am showing a rabbit, I will put about a tablespoon of like dried lavender on their food. And I'll link below the brand that I really like. But my rabbits, you got to remember too, are large French laps. So they're 12 plus pounds. Now that is just a minor dose. And I know it's not going to be like, I'm not really working on like a training thing or like a bad attitude, that sort of thing. This was just to kind of keep them in a better mood and keep them eating. I like lavender ahead of time too, because they're exposed to other rabbits. So I don't know, like, did somebody bring a healthy one? Things like that. I really like it for that. And it also kind of just makes it a little bit less stressful for them and for me. And so then, when they appear sick, now this is one that, is kind of difficult to know with rabbits because it's either they're good or they go down hard and fast. And so this is one reason why I always feed my rabbits one time a day, the amount that they would clean up in the 24-hour period. And the reason for that being is usually with rabbits, their first thing that they do when they go down or they're not feeling good is they stop eating. And so there are a lot of reasons they will stop eating, even if they're not sick. But my first note is like, oh, they ate half of it than they should have, and which is also why I feed about the same hour every day too, if at all possible. Like if life gets in the way, it's fine. But I'm able to go, oh, they ate half what they should, make a mental note of it and go, if they're do the same thing tomorrow, then we need to do something about it. Sometimes they're just off, and that's okay. When weather temperatures fluctuate, that's another reason they'll stop eating. Different things like that. So the other thing would be like if it's super obvious that they're sick. The one experience that I really had that was like sold me with how good lavender was. Like I knew it, but I never really had like a really bad situation into where I was just like, all right, this is the last ditch effort kind of thing. And I had a teenage doe that I came out one morning. She was like covered in diarrhea. We hadn't been anywhere. I didn't really notice of something that, would have caused it. And so for rabbits, diarrhea is bad news. And I'm like, okay, well, it's like, if I don't fix this like quick, we're gonna have problems. So I have, lavender growing in our gardens, and I'll get on to, getting it later. But I went up front, clipped some sprigs of it, and I'm just going to feed her as much as I could, or give her as much as she'll eat. Now, normally, I will give them about an inch of the plant per pound. So, if they're 10 pounds, give them about 10 inches of it, that kind of thing. So with this doe, I did try and just give her like as much as she could, because like she was gonna kick the bucket if it didn't happen. And so she probably got about probably 12 inches each dosage that I'm going to explain. So I found it in the mid-afternoon, gave her the dosage that day. Then the next morning, it didn't seem any worse. So I got her another dosage again in the morning and again that evening. And then by that evening, she was already like pooping normal again. She wasn't like perky yet, but she was like going in the right direction. And so after 4 doses of that, she was back to normal. And she never had an issue again. So, that was where I was like, okay, this is going to be the, get me out of a pickle situation. And so that has always been my go-to. I think fresh lavender obviously is going to be the strongest, but dried is okay. So in that situation, I would have probably put 2 to 3 tablespoons and mixed it somewhat in her feed. I obviously want her to get the most of it, but they're not going to eat those light, dried little flowers. That's just kind of like an odd texture for rabbits usually. So fresh is always better. But if you don't have it, you use dried. For training is a good example of, like, if you get a rabbit that's like off like the charts, grouchy or something, would be a great time to use it, and to really, when you're working with them, get them to just be okay with you touching them or doing things with them. It's never going to put them in a complete like good mood or anything, but it takes the edge off. And I recently bought a buck that I bought him last year, and now I've had him he's almost a year, and he was right around 4 months old when I got him. So French Laps are considered adults at a year roughly, or fully grown anyway. And he was awful. Like I was like this close to like not using him and just trying to sell him or something, or I don't know. But I was trying to make sure that it was the way he was like kept with a group of rabbits. I'm going to get on behavior a little bit later or in another video. But when rabbits are together, when litter mates are together for too long, that can cause them to kind of go the more wild direction. And I think that's what happened with this one. So he was just unmanageable almost. And it was never aggression. It was total like fear of me. And also like, just don't touch me. Not like he had ever been abused or anything. Just like he didn't want human interaction. And so I was like, well, I got to work on this to see if this was even possible. So for him, for close to 2 weeks, I put lavender on top of his feed because it wasn't growing at the time. And so it just barely takes the edge off to where he's not angry that I'm touching him, right? So when you're working with that, I'm trying not to go too deep into off topic here, but use it like up to, I would say, a month. And then after that, probably dial it back, and then give it a break and then use it some more if you have to. It's very hard to overdose rabbits, but it will, you don't want to depend on it, okay? So, the other instance that I like to use lavender for is when the rabbits are leaving me and going to a new home. So if you raise them, this would be a good thing. It'll give them, because people are poorly educated about the way rabbits need to be. And so you don't know what other kind of animals are there. You don't know what's just going to offset them, whether it's, just a new living environment, and like someone's a smoker and you weren't, or which that would be a big one. People love to put rabbits indoors these days. And so like when they're used to living outside, but then they're moved inside, that can be a huge, thing like that. So it helps with a transition. And in that instance, I usually give them a couple if they're young at this point. So they're 3 to 4 pounds max, then I will put about a tablespoon on their feed for like 2 or 3 days. Okay. All right. So how much can you give them? I've kind of already said this a little bit, about 1 inch per pound, like 1 inch of plant, if you grow it, and then, about a tablespoon per 5 pounds probably would be, the measurement for dried. If you have to buy it. So The other thing I want to make a point here that people kind of get wrong is that when a rabbit likes a certain food, they'll just be like, oh, we'll just give them all of this. There's a problem with that. Your rabbit pellets are meant to be a complete ration. Listen to me. Your rabbit pellets, if they are a commercial feed, are a complete ration. You do not need to supplement for anything else. And this is the problem with this is like people just assume, oh, it's just grass. Well, like rabbits are herbivores. They just eat green things. Okay, but they need a certain level of protein still. So if you are pushing them to eat other things besides their commercial pellets, they are not able to eat enough of the pellets to get the nutrition they need. So you are essentially it's like giving a kid a donut and then expecting them to eat a whole meal after that. It's just not possible. So you need to not use this as a treat. Like, it doesn't matter that it's medicinal and that it's good for them and things like that. Yes, when they're sick, like, that's a different story, but never, never, never continually give animals, or rabbits either, essentially a treat before their actual food. So it's kind of like forcing them to eat the vegetables and the meat before you give them the pie, right? So a lot of people kind of just think that, oh, they don't correlate the protein issue. And so I'm seeing this more and more and more where rabbits are getting sick or unhealthy, and it's a feed issue. It's not that, something else is wrong. Okay? So if your rabbit starts to like it, stop. Give them their other feed and cut them off cold turkey if they're healthy, obviously, like if you're not in the middle of trying to fix a problem. Okay? So just really, really watch that. All right. So that's the last of my points, but where can you get it? Obviously, like I said, I grow it, but the plant is not live for probably 5 months out of the year. And so, Starwest Botanicals has been my favorite place to order herbs from. It's usually a large amount. And so I have a herd of like between 10 and 12 rabbits at a time. And that doesn't include the litters. So I will get a pound of each herb. It will last me a year and a half or even 2 years. So as long as you keep it dry, very dry, and out of sunlight, you are fine. Don't ever give them herbs or anything if it smells like has drawn damp or even molded. You may not see the mold, but you could probably smell like an off smell. And so you can keep it for a lot longer, or, for a decent amount of time. I also will I don't really care all that much about organic stuff most of the time, but with rabbits being so touchy, I do want them to have organic herbs because, you don't know what kind of chemical was on those or anything like that. So just consider that as well. So I will link to the brands I like, some of the top herbs, and including lavender. I think Starwest Botanicals came out with maybe a 4-ounce bag, a smaller one, I think. And so, if you just have a couple rabbits, you could get a smaller bag and be fine. All right, I hope this was helpful for you. If you enjoyed it, I would love to hear about it in the comments. I've got a couple other herbs that I do use. So if you want to hear about those, then let me know and I will make videos about those.